What artist could be so influential that people from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond, musical legends who will stand the test of time? Who is the one influence that flows through all these artists? Ike Frasier Industries presents another vinyl show with Ike Frasier. The Chirping Crickets, a cornerstone of rock and roll. Hey everybody, it's your old pal Ike Frasier, and we're talking about the cornerstone of rock and roll right here. The Chirping Crickets. This record came out in 1957, and as we'll see in the film after this little talk, we'll learn all about the history of the record. But I'm going to tell you, this is one of the most important records of the 50s. A self-contained rock and roll band. The downfall being the producer, Norman Petty. And we'll have a story about him later. But oh boy, Not Fade Away, That'll Be the Day. Rock With Me, My Baby has the riff that would later become 19th Nervous Breakdown by the Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones' first #1 record in the UK was a cover of Not Fade Away from this record. Maybe Baby, a big hit, covered even by Escarita on Escarita's debut album from 1959. It is just impossible to underestimate the power of this record. The Stratocaster became a famous instrument because of this record. Now, this record didn't do well in the United States, even though it had lots of hit singles on it, but in the UK it was a tremendous success and spawned the British invasion. If you think about it, all those bands just love Buddy Holly. The Beatles get their name, Crickets. Beatles, Crickets, John Lennon, he said that's where the name comes from, as a tribute to the Crickets and the beat that the Beatles give you. I mean, you can't take anything away from this record. It is a great record, but I will say that if Buddy Holly had went to Memphis instead of New Mexico, he might have had a longer life, because Sam Phillips would have concentrated on him like he would have Jerry Lee Lewis, and he wouldn't have had to take a winter dance party. Norman Petty keeping all the money, we'll get to that story later. But this is all about one of the greatest rock and roll records of all time, Buddy Holly's The Chirping Crickets. A young Buddy Holly decided that he wanted to have a musical career, and he formed a combo called Buddy and Bob. And Buddy and Bob played country and western and a little bit of hillbilly bop until 1955, when a young Elvis Presley came to town. And Buddy and Bob were at the bottom of the bill for 3 separate Elvis Presley performances in 1955. And here we see Elvis to the far left and Buddy to the far right. The next big rock and roll act to come to Lubbock was Bill Haley and the Comets. Now, at the bottom of the bill again, we see that Buddy and Bob are there, playing a little more rock and roll than they've ever played before, because Elvis has influenced Buddy so much at this point. Now, Decca Records sends along with their big star Eddie Cantrell, the head of their A&R department. And when he sees Buddy and Bob, he thinks, I'm signing Buddy to a solo contract, leaving Bob behind. They go to Nashville and they record sessions that produce 2 singles released in 1956 that go nowhere. Buddy's dropped by January 1957, and he is also banned from re-recording any songs, even demos that he recorded for Decca. Buddy puts a band together, possibly the first rock and roll band in the world, the Crickets. And of course, the members of this band are Buddy Holly and Joe Maudlin and Jerry Allison, who named the band, and Nicky Sullivan, who would be the first to quit. Now, Roy Orbison, a friend of Buddy Holly's, says, well, you don't have a record contract. You need to go record and send some songs to other labels. And in Clovis, New Mexico, Norman Petty has a studio, and Roy Orbison had used that already. And Norman Petty recorded the Crickets in February of 57, signed a contract for the Crickets in March of 57, and they were ready to put out That Will Be the Day by July 27th, 1957. And with some promotion and appearances on TV, that song rose to number 1 in September and number 2 on the R&B charts. Now, the album wasn't released until November 27th, 1957, and for some reason it did not chart in the United States, which is so hard to believe. But in the UK, it charted at number 5, where it was a huge record. But Norman Petty, the producer and manager, he decided that he would credit himself as a co-writer on 9 songs. How much are these records worth? Well, the original Blue Days and Black Nights from 1956 went on Discogs for $300. The second single from 1956, Modern Don Juan, went on Discogs for $100. The textured cover, which is the first pressing from Gloversville, and really look at that texture on that paper. That's a very rare record. $627 on Discogs and $1,075 on eBay. The promo went for $495 on Discogs and $1,750 on eBay. The first pressing U.S. Black Label, Discogs $100, eBay $1,025. First press Maroon Canadian, Discogs $100, eBay $300. The UK LP on Coral instead of Brunswick, now that on Discogs went for $127. This is the Australian alternate cover. It's pretty cool, but the Stratocaster cover is everybody's favorite. Discogs $52, eBay $115. This is the 1958 EP, and that went for $500 on eBay and $200 on Discogs. The second EP, Sound of the Crickets, Discogs $100, eBay $399. The reissue of the Chirping Crickets album on Coral, Discogs $100, eBay $150. And this is the new 2019 yellow vinyl reissue that is being reissued yet again, and that was $35 and $27. Elvis and Buddy again, as we see. Buddy and Little Richard. Buddy and Jerry Lee. He is so important. He is one of the founders of what we call rock and roll. God bless Buddy Holly. It's your old pal Ike Frasier coming back to say thanks for watching, and just to say one more time that the Chirping Crickets is a cornerstone of rock and roll, and the Crickets might not be the first rock and roll band, but they definitely are one of the greatest. And if you liked the video, give us a like, leave us a comment, tell us what's your favorite track from this record, and if you care to, subscribe. That'd really help us out. But this is my original 1957 copy, still in the shrink wrap, and you don't have to have one from 1957. Just make sure it's mono and make sure it's analog, and you're gonna really rock out every time. You can't go wrong with any of those modern pressings that tell you that they're analog. So you don't have to spend the kind of money that's in the values, although those are the top prices. So you can get records cheaper than what are listed in the values, but those are the top prices. So go out there and get you this record, the Chirping Crickets. It's one of the greatest rock and roll records of all time. And I'm Ike Frasier, and this is another vinyl show, and we thank you for checking us out, and we'll see you next time.